As we approach the end of National School Choice Week, CarolinaJournal.com has a new column with this headline: School choice will explode when we rediscover the purpose of education. The author of that piece is Ray Nothstine, who is opinions editor at Carolina Journal. And Ray, you start this piece by looking at an interesting controversy that we were following this week at the State Board of Education about social studies standards. This is an important debate, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely an important debate. There's a huge just conversation going on how do we teach children, students in North Carolina and across the nation about civics. And one of the big things, obviously, is the 1619 Project, which is very controversial, a new initiative to introduce more critical race theory, to introduce systemic racism theories into the classroom. And Mark Robinson is pushing back on that. I think he's kind of resonating with a lot of the grassroots across the state and just conservatives in general who are concerned that this type of instruction may lead to people to just say the United States founding, our American founding is completely flawed. It's inherently racist. We really can't learn anything from that. And we see that just from a practical standpoint, many schools being renamed across the country, maybe schools named after Washington, Jefferson. I think there's been even a few examples of Lincoln. So it's just, that's just some of the outwork of that going on right now.
You pivot from that point, though, to a larger point, and I want to read this paragraph from your column. Yet many of those discussions hardly touch on the deeper purpose of education that transforms the life of the individual and community. Political warfare and policy discussions are important, but a true educational renaissance requires cultural transformation. Interesting point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree that politics is downstream of culture, and I think this is true in education as well. So if we just, I've been thinking about this issue a little bit more because I have two young sons. They're going to be going to school soon. So I want to just have a deeper understanding about the purpose of education. What are we educating them for? I mean, North Carolina, and I'm not saying this is bad, there's many different definitions, but they kind of focus, if you go onto their kind of the school board website, their focus is on career readiness, vocation readiness. But there's been a lot of varying degrees through the centuries about what education means. I think I quoted Admiral Stockdale, who's this great American hero, James Stockdale, who suffered in a Vietnamese prison camp as a naval aviator and was a leader there. He talks about the Stoics, that the purpose of education really is about preparing people for failure and not success. And that's character building. And of course, Milton, the great English poet, I bring him up. He talked about the religious instruction and the importance of moral and a religious awakening so that people can reflect God. That's another purpose of education. And so I go through different ideas just briefly on education and just really get to that point in saying parents should be able to choose. We're a very diverse and pluralistic society now, so why are we not letting families take more ownership over education and choose what is best for their child and just giving freedom instead of having, sometimes the factory model might be too much of a critical observation of public schooling, but there's some truth to it. I mean, there's some truth to why people to put that forward. And I think just allowing more freedom generally helps to rediscover the purpose of education and helps students and the parents think about that more intently.
You and I work at a think tank, so we think about these things as part of our daily lives. But you also make the point in this column that because largely of COVID-19, lots of parents are thinking about these things, even ones who probably would not have thought about them before.
Yeah, I think this is an important point because sometimes we look at education and, I'm in a family with two working parents, but sometimes we think of education as kind of a model of convenience sometimes. Well, COVID has taken that away, in large part because of politics, but there's other reasons. And so parents are now forced to act and think about what is the best alternative for my child to learn, because if they're just at home in front of a screen, maybe that's not the best alternative. And so just rethinking that aspect. I mean, many of us know people across the state. I mean, I know a family that started thinking about homeschooling and did homeschool their children. We live in the state of North Carolina where I think I cite like 8.3%, and Terry Stoops has cited this number of times, but families in North Carolina have homeschool children in the household. And that's amazing. We're the highest state per capita by far. I think the next state as Arkansas, and we're still like several percentage points higher than them. So it's something North Carolinians are thinking about deeply. And I think COVID has just accelerated that. And with the shuttering of schools has completely accelerated the notion of people being forced to or just acting upon what they've been thinking about on what the purpose of education is. And it allows them to make some changes because convenience is no longer a motivating factor for many families.
Once again, the title of the column or the headline is School Choice Will Explode When We Rediscover the Purpose of Education. Its author is Ray Nothstine, opinions editor at Carolina Journal. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.